Hi, this is our next video in the For Rent Proforma series of my Architect as Developer series. This is Danny from CS Design, and today I'm going to talk about the next tab in the Proforma, which is the Sources and Uses tab. This isn't something that most Proformas have, or I don't want to say most, but some Proformas do not have. It's not really something that you need to show a bank or anything like that. This is more for yourself so that you can track where the money for the development is coming from and where you will be using it. And what I've done though is I've tweaked it to include a time component. Basically at the top you've got the beginning of the project, and at the bottom you've got the completion of the project. Now remember, going back to our cost estimate, we had determined that the total development cost for this project was just under 2.5 million. That's including land. But that doesn't mean that you have to have $2.5 million in your pocket ready to go to do this project. Like I said in that previous video, if you had $2.5 million in cash, you'd probably be doing a $10 million project. But what you do need is certain amounts of money at a certain time. So let's take a look at this. So first we're going to have what I call the development period. So this is the period of time where you're acquiring land. Perhaps you're getting entitlements if the project is going to need some sort of zoning change or things of that nature, permitting, all of the stuff that you do before you get to the construction period is essentially what I'm calling the development period. So the first thing you're going to need to do is you're going to need to buy the land, assuming that you don't own it already or somebody that you're partnering with already owns it. Let's just assume you have to go out and buy it. And in this scenario, remember, we have a land cost of $750,000. So let's pretend that 75% of that is going to come from a land loan, and the other 25% is going to come from private equity. So you can see here that right off the top, the development, let's call it, is in the hole negative $750,000. You get that 75% land loan of $562,000, so you're short $196,500. Don't forget, you got to take into account land loan closing costs, things like that. I've put it at 1.6%. And therefore, what you really need at this point is just a little under $200,000. And you're back to zero. Let's call it you're back to zero, because you've essentially acquired the land, you've used your equity, you've gotten a loan. Now the next thing you're going to need, the next batch of funds that you're going to need, is for the entitlement and design. And this here is the interest on the loan that you have, that you took out to get the land. You're going to be paying interest right off the bat. And you're going to be paying this interest until you get the construction loan or the permanent loan at the end of the project in order to pay off the land loan. So that's that number there. And that number is coming from the development cost estimate tab, which is this number here, this $33,750. Actually, that should be highlighted in green. I apologize for that. And the soft costs that are here is coming from the development cost estimate tab that we calculated. This is the money that you were going to be paying to all of the consultants, all of your marketing, your fees, your permits. That was at $305,659. So that money, remember, you used up your private equity to buy the land and you went back to zero. So now you need money to come up with this, to pay for this. So that's also going to be private equity. So if you look at it at this point, to get this project through the first, let's say, year, you're going to need a little over $500,000 up front in order to, again, pay for the land and pay for all of your consultants. Now, assuming you've gotten all your permits, you've gotten all your fees, you've designed the project, you're ready to go into construction, you have to go out and get a construction loan. Remember, I said that we were going to be getting a construction loan at a 75% value of loan to cost. This is going all the way back to our project summary. Remember where I said the bank was going to be looking at different numbers, either making a loan based on the value of the completed project, making a loan based on the cost, or making a loan based on the debt coverage ratio. And in this example, I'm doing it as a percentage of the total development cost, which means that you can get a loan for $1.8 million. And that obviously is not going to be enough. You're going to need some additional funding, but you've pretty much paid all of the costs up front, and the only thing you really need is just to cover the shortfall in the construction loan. If you look at this, the construction loan is $1.8 million. You're going to pay off your land loan, you're going to pay off your land loan interest, and you're going to have $1.26 million left. But if you remember, your hard costs were only $1.3 million. Let's go back here to the cost estimate. $1.3 million. That's including the GC fee, design contingency, and everything. And your construction loan is bigger than that. Your construction loan is $1.8 million. So you should have enough with your construction loan to take out the land loan and then pay off the bulk of your hard costs. Any shortfall at this point is going to have to be made up by private equity. So in this case, $45,000. Now, just to recap, at this point, you've gotten $196,500, $339,000, and then $45,000 in private equity. So the total private equity that you've expended at this point, excuse me, coming back over here, is $581,000. And if you look, that's about almost 25% of the total development cost, which is right around the ballpark of what the bank wants to see. This is how much skin you have in the game. Not you personally, but you, your investors, your partners, whatever you want to call it. And you should be able to move into construction. So again, just to recap, you have a $2.5 million development cost. You need some upfront to pay for your land. So it's going to be partially private equity, partially a loan. Then when you get into construction, you're going to get another loan, but a larger loan than your construction cost, because we're basing it on the total development cost. And that should be able to pay for your land and most of your construction. Any shortfall, you'll have to make up with private equity. So now, you've completed construction, your project is done. Now you have to pay off this construction loan, right? You borrowed $1.8 million, and you've got to pay that off. And you're not selling this project. This is a for rent pro forma, which means that you're going to be leasing out this space, and you're going to be getting a little bit of money every month for however many years. But this construction loan usually has a payback term of 12, 18, maybe 24 months. So you've got to pay this money back right now. You don't have 30 years or 15 years. So in that case, what you do is you go out and get a permanent loan or a takeout loan. And that's the loan that will essentially allow you to pay this $1.8 million back. And it's the loan that you're going to be paying off every month with the debt service. Remember when we were looking at this in income and expenses tab, I said you were going to be making $193,000 in revenue. After your operating expenses, you were going to be left with a net operating income of $145,000. However, most of that is going to go to service your debt. So if we come back over here, here's that $145,000, your NOI. This is your cap rate, and I'd refer you back to part 4 of our Medium posts to get a rehash of the capitalization rate. If you take your NOI and you divide it by the cap rate, you get a market value of the property. So let's say this project right now at a 4.5 cap is valued at $3.2 million. This is essentially what would, if you were to sell this building, if you were to sell this project, what would you sell it for? So in this case, let's say $3.2 million. So you'd go to the bank and you'd say, hey, I'd like to get a permanent loan for this project. They'd say, okay, well, the project is worth $3.2 million. We'll either give you a permanent loan based on cost, value, or your debt coverage ratio. In this case, the least of the three, which is the debt coverage ratio. So here's your permanent loan of $1.78 million. But your construction loan was 1.856. So you're going to need, in this scenario, another round of private equity in order to pay off that permanent loan. So that's another $149,000. And so that brings you, so everyone's paid off. The land loan was paid off by the construction loan. The construction loan was paid off by the permanent loan. And the only money that the project owes is to all of the individuals who participated in the private equity deposits. So these people who gave you money to do this project are now the only ones that are still owed money. And they're the ones that are going to be being paid over time, again, from your net operating income. So this net operating income is going to dwindle really fast. And you'll see that in the next tab, which is the multi-year analysis. And this is basically showing what's going to happen every year as money comes in and money comes out. So let me just recap this one more time. This tab shows you the money that you need, where it's coming from, and when you need it, and what it's for. Most of this is going to be calculated automatically. If you notice, there are no blue cells in here other than your originating loan percentages. All of this is just going to automatically get populated, and you can quickly see, once you've entered in the information of these other tabs, what it is you're going to need and when you're going to need it. Most importantly, you're going to be looking at what your total equity left in the deal is going to be at the very end. And if you look, it's about 30% of the total development cost, which again is a good number in terms of the bank, because you've got skin in the game. You definitely want this project to do well, because you need to pay back all your equity investors and hopefully move on to the next project. All right. So I hope that wasn't too confusing. If you do have questions, please just drop them in the comments, or go to the Slack channel and we can talk about it there. And as I said, the next video is going to be the multi-year analysis, and we'll look at what's happening every year as money comes in and money comes out. And you can also play with this, and you can do some projections as to what would happen if you were to sell your building in year 10. All right, so that'll be the next video. And thank you so much for your time, and see you next time.